Hi, this is Niyanta Spelman with Rainforest Partnership, bringing to you Our Planet, Our Future, a video podcast presented by Rainforest Partnership. Find us at www.rainforestpartnership.org and on social media. Join us as we bring interesting and compelling guests to talk about the environment, climate change, and rainforests. Hello and welcome. I'm Niyanta Spelman of Rainforest Partnership, and this is Our Planet, Our Future, video podcast brought to you by Rainforest Partnership. I'm here with Charles Zeller today. Charles is climate science geek. And many other self-confessed things that he will tell us a little bit more about. A long-time Austinite, but part-time Californian as well. Went to Caltech to study physics, and then worked in product development in computers, built computers in the early days of Dell, and did very many interesting things, and now pursues all things to do with climate change in the best way that he can, and is a philanthropist as well.
Which is why I'm here. Okay, well, I guess the question is, how did I discover climate science and become interested in it after I was able to retire? I worked at many companies before Dell. I was a workaholic, and I had not noticed or thought much about climate change or climate science. And after I became involved with a group at Caltech, which was sort of a skunk works in about 2001, 2002, and they were very concerned about climate change. And
when was this?
About 2001, 2002. With a fellow alumni friend who roped me into it, and I was fascinated. I spent a couple of years studying the science, textbooks and so forth, before we had the benefit of great climate science communication that's now available on the web. And at this point, that group, which was called the Caltech Center for Sustainable Energy Resources, has grown into the Resnick Institute, which is the third largest discipline at Caltech, behind physics and biotech. So that's, I really didn't know anything about climate science or climate change before then.
And then you are one of the founders. You're wearing this T-shirt, Climate Science Legal Defense Fund.
Yes.
Tell us more about that, and what made you found that? And
well, two people, Josh Wolf and Scott Mandia, actually started it. I was an initial funder, and became involved very, very early. The initial project was to defend a climate scientist, Dr. Michael Mann. Mike was the principal author of what's become known as the hockey stick paper, which reconstructed surface temperatures over a 1,000-year period, which confirmed what was expected. The temperature was gradually decreasing because of orbital mechanics, the Milankovitch cycles are very gradual, and then it shot up. And it became a lightning rod for deniers, right-wing media, and he was sued for papers and so forth, taken to court, and we won 2 cases, and they were important in the judicial system, and we still are defending climate scientists as we speak.
it's an interesting thing that science is never exact. and people are discovering things, and there are a lot of assumptions that go into play. But some things are very hard to deny. You know, you can't play with facts. Rajendra Pachauri, who is the chair of IPCC, would often say that politicians like to negotiate, but you can't negotiate with laws of physics. And a lot of climate science is basically very basic physics. We may want to say at the edges, you know, we don't know what caused what or how or when, but, you know, we have more carbon in the air. We know that. We know that there's a correlation from when industrial age started, and yes, there are other natural cycles, but we can account for that. And some things are very, very simple, and with that, we know that it is also the mean temperatures are rising, and then now we're seeing the effects. But you were talking about a little bit more about the role oceans play. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, they call it the evil twin of disrupting the geological carbon cycle is ocean acidification. It's pretty simple chemistry. There's about 28% more hydrogen ions in the ocean, and also in the calcium carbonate levels go down, and I can't remember the exact chemical formulas, but they're easy. The net is that organisms, all the way from plankton up to oysters and so forth, the acidity is making it harder for them to maintain their shells, and the lack of sources to build those shells, calcium carbonate, is decreasing. So, and then there's, you know, the temperature changes, the coral reefs. You know, science cannot predict every detail, but we do know that this kind of abrupt change, which has never happened before at this rate, the change in the balance of carbon has had devastating effects in the past. I think humans will survive, but I think it's going to be tough. You know, there's going to be a lot of challenges.
And I think that's something that's hard for people to grasp, right? Because, yes, humanity will survive, but what is the planet going to look like? The planet's going to be here. It's been here 4 billion years. It's going to be here for the next 4 billion. But what is it going to look like, and is it going to be able to sustain us with the stable climate that we've become used to, and everything else that survives with us?
Well, it's going to change, and it's actually fascinating to be in a transition between geological epochs. We're getting to watch it happen. It's amazingly fascinating. You know, the details of it as it's playing out, and you know, they can look back at paleoclimatology and try to figure out what's happened before, but we're getting to see it, and we don't know everything that's going to happen. Nobody does. We know it's going to be disruptive. It clearly is going to be disruptive.
And the fact that we are responsible as humans.
Well, definitely.
And so...
it's...
Yeah. You're interesting because you spent 2 years teaching yourself a lot of this.
Now it would be much easier for people to teach themselves than it was 15 years ago because of incredible communication groups like Skeptical Science, which is sort of the gold standard. Peter Sinclair, Yale Climate Center for Climate Communication. I forget exactly.
Yes, and they do great polls all the time. I love seeing where people in this country are in terms of how they think about climate change. I love all the data that they collect.
They're more into polling, and I'm a supporter of a group called Republican, which is Bob Inglis, who is as conservative as a person as you can find, is the leader of that group. Environmentalism and climate change has traditionally been a conservative issue. I don't know how it got hijacked. I mean, I've got theories, but we won't go into that.
Well, what's interesting is that you're right. Environmentalism should not be about political ideology. We all have to live on this planet. We all have to breathe to survive. We have to drink water. We
care about our descendants.
It doesn't matter who we are, and those labels, political labels, don't matter. For us that work on protecting forests, we're not political because what we do is not political. It may have been politicized, but what we do is not. It's about protecting forests that are something that supports the well-being of and the balance of our planet, and therefore all of us that live on this planet.
Well, even in economic terms, at this point, it's bad accounting to not. And with renewable energy becoming very cost competitive, it's hard to compete against free fuel. It becomes a systems challenge of how do we electrify the grid? We need a little storage, but it's there.
Yes.
You can look at our utility company, and they're cutting deals with wind and solar that's cheaper than coal.
And it has been in many countries.
Right.
And the other day Britain went 30 hours without using coal. And you see this, it's in the news every day, something or the other like that is happening. You talked about protection of forests as being much easier for people to grasp than talking about the geological cycle and understanding that aspect of climate change. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, it's pretty easy the rainforests are all you have to do. We don't spend any time in the rainforest, you do, but to see them being mowed down for short-term gains, where it's got this incredible diversity of life, and it's beautifully complex and efficient. There's so many life forms. To see them being destroyed, anybody should understand that that's not right. I mean, at a visceral level, we can understand that. I could have understood that when I was 10 years old. It's like, it's such a short-term thinking. And the fact that your organization, Rainforest Partnership, is regenerating the forest and helping people understand how the people who have lived and coexisted in that environment to sustain a living and not give up their home for a short-term financial gain is that's what motivated me. Plus your passion, and you're a compelling person. Niyanta. You really are. Yeah. You're a doer.
Well, I think some of us have to do that, and we need folks like you who are going to spend time learning and supporting, right?
Right.
How do we make it more obvious for people out there?
I think just keep doing what you're doing and spread the word and get people like me that maybe are kind of thinking of, the quote big picture of the system to start looking at the components. And the components are what we can identify with, because that's where we've lived all our lives.
One of the things you did when you came to our event back in November, I loved it. You said you loved being there and you brought your son, and then you said, I love this, and you said, it is that, and you did. Right. It's hard. And I guess, is that what we need to do to get people to connect to why we need to pay attention to what's going on with our planet, what's going on with climate change, what is going on, so that we can touch it in some way and make a difference ourselves, each one of us, that is more aware and is able to do it. Because not everybody can. There are a lot of people who have to think about where's that food going to come from for that day,
right?
Where they're going to sleep that night. But there's a whole bunch of us who can think about this. And you've supported so many different causes. You've had events at your house. You read up about things. You know so much. You go to conferences. You've been going to conferences for 10 years. You geek out with fellow climate change experts and enthusiasts and people actually doing things.
I think it's challenging that we all make personal choices, local food, sustainable coffee, buying green energy from Austin Energy. We can make individual choices. As you know, I think collectively politics is just a big component of what we have to do. It's a we have to deal with this collectively. We can't, individual action, it only goes so far. But awareness of what that individual action should be can be expressed through talking to politicians. If they don't listen, vote for somebody else. And so that's how I got into politics. Really was environmentalism and climate and energy policy. I really get irritated at willful ignorance and promotion of willful ignorance through politicians. Most of the politicians understand it. They pretend that they don't, but they do.
That's probably true to get to that place.
Without mentioning a political party.
Well, you said that you've been a lifelong environmentalist. What made you become an environmentalist? How did you define yourself as an environmentalist, even when you were young?
Well, I can never remember not being one. It just, I don't know how much of it's nature or nurture. My mother was, I love nature. Her family is from the hill country. I spent a lot of time out there.
Hill country in Austin, which is beautiful.
Well, Burnet and Lampasas. And still are ranchers, and it was natural. I guess there were incremental steps. When I drove into Pasadena, which is in the LA basin, and I'd really only been outside of Texas once. I was appalled at it was hard to breathe.
Oh gosh, yes, LA was very difficult in those days. Yes.
64.
Yeah.
And I was there from 64 to 70. I worked at Caltech for 2 years after I graduated, and I couldn't stand it anymore. And just the inefficiency of all the asphalt and the cars and that was a huge awakening, right there. And in terms of just saying we gotta do something, you know, this isn't right. And then I don't know if there is, for the next 40 years I just worked, so I didn't think much about it. And then when I started having time to think, began to look at just the horrors of what we're doing. You know, we're short-term thinking that it doesn't make sense economically or emotionally or sustainably or for our children or anything. It's we got to just change, and that's what we've done. All humans have done. People were getting around in horses, 120 years ago. And then there were cars, because we built roads, we built internal combustion engines, we didn't electrify the hill country I mean, we do make changes.
Yes.
And technology does advance. And, you know, when I started working in computers, there was only a couple of hundred of them, and they were millions of dollars, and they weren't a hundredth as powerful as what we have in our pockets now. We can change, and that's what we should do.
We're very capable as human beings of creating innovation, aren't we?
I'm reaching for that Lagunitas, in case anybody's wondering.
Well, we're in our Austin headquarter office, and yes, they have been a sponsor and a wonderful supporter, so yes. I think it's okay. If you had something to share with people, either about yourself or about climate change or about rainforests, as you've been learning a lot more, I think more and more so in the last year, what would it be? What would you want people to think about? And I gave you broad...
Yeah, boy, that's a. I've got to figure out how to answer that one. I believe we should just think about our place here on the planet. You know, go look at Carl Sagan's pale blue dot. We're just a little speck, all alone in the universe, and it's up to us to take care of it, and not to use it up for short-term game. We got to be long-term thinkers, and we've got to have some reverence for the life on this earth. The planet will go on. There will be, you know, if there's a mass extinction event because we torn it up and climate change, it'll come back. Life will do fine. It's done it before. Mm-hmm. It'll
be just a different form.
Yeah,
yes.
I think though, you know, we're given the responsibility. I use that loosely, not being particularly religious, but we do have the responsibility to take care of the creation, and that's what we got to do, and we got to feel it. We got to feel it.
And if just a small fraction of us felt it, that's all it would take, wouldn't it? I think
big changes are made by 20 or 30% of motivated people, you know, in the past that get things done. You know, you look at big social changes. So.
And you know, yesterday was Earth Day, right. And 1 billion of us take action of some sort on Earth Day. Mm-hmm. It's just one day a year.
Right.
So maybe we get to 2 or 3 billion, and we would be, or maybe 2 billion, and that would do it. That would be between 20 and 30%.
Yes.
That would be raising enough awareness to start making, and that sort of, there's some hope there.
Oh, there's a lot of hope. I think we're going to do it.
Well, good. That's a lovely way. Mm-hmm. I like optimism. I don't think I could do what I'm doing. I don't think this team at Rainforest Partnership could do what we're doing if we didn't have optimism. And we couldn't be working with the communities that we work with in the way we do if we didn't have hope and optimism.
And that's why I'm here with you right now.
Well, thank
been a
you so
pleasure.
much. I've been with Charles Zeller, and I'm Niyanta Spelman of Rainforest Partnership, and we were bringing our planet, our future. Thank you for joining us. You've been listening to Our Planet, Our Future, brought to you by Rainforest Partnership. From Niyanta Spelman and the Rainforest Partnership team, thank you for joining us.